In August 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed west from the Spanish port of Palos de la Frontera. Every schoolchild learns the date. Every textbook calls it the moment Europe woke up, the end of the Dark Ages, the birth of the modern world. But Columbus did not sail from a backwater. He sailed from a coastline that had already been the wealthiest region in the Western world for almost 600 years. He did not discover wealth, he spent it, and the proof was buried in the ground beneath his feet the entire time. Almost 500,000 coins scattered across thousands of hidden hoards, waiting for someone to ask the right question. In April 2026, 2 economists finally did. Before we follow the trail of buried silver and the story it has been trying to tell us for 1,500 years, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a discovery with Strata Files. The textbook story of medieval Europe is simple enough that anyone can recite it. Rome falls in 476 CE, a dark age descends. Europe sits in candlelit poverty for 1,000 years. Then Columbus sails, the Renaissance hits, the modern world begins. Tidy, memorable, completely wrong. By the year 900, 6 centuries before Columbus, the Atlantic coast of Europe was already the economic epicenter of the Western world. The Mediterranean, the sea that had built Rome and crowned emperors and fed half the ancient population, had become a backwater. Power, money, and trade had quietly migrated west and north over 5 centuries. By the time Columbus was born, the Atlantic had been the center of European wealth for longer than the United States has existed as a country. We just never knew it, because the proof was buried. The economists are Johannes Boehm at the Geneva Graduate Institute and Thomas Chaney at the University of Southern California. In April 2026, they published a working paper through the National Bureau of Economic Research titled Trade and the End of Antiquity. They assembled the largest database of ancient coins ever analyzed, 494,229 coins from 5,625 separate hoards. These coins were buried across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East between the years 325 CE and 950 CE, a 6-century span. That is the exact window in which Rome collapsed, Islam rose, and the economic geography of the Western world flipped on its head. Late antiquity is traditionally a data desert. There are no GDP records, there are no census spreadsheets, there are no customs receipts. For nearly a century, historians have argued about whether Rome's economy collapsed slowly or all at once, whether Islam destroyed Mediterranean trade or merely finished off a decline already in progress. The Belgian historian Henri Pirenne famously summed it up in a single line. Without Mohammed, Charlemagne would have been inconceivable. Scholars have debated that thesis with literary fragments and educated guesswork for 90 years. They have never had a number. Coins change that. A coin is a tiny time capsule. It tells you where it was minted, roughly when, and where it was finally dropped, buried, or lost. Multiply that by 500,000, and you have an irrefutable map of where money was moving across 600 years. Boehm and Chaney built their database on top of an existing Princeton University project called FLAME, framing the late antique and early medieval economy. FLAME had spent years collecting coin data up to the year 725. The 2 economists extended it. They hand-coded another 106,371 coins from 830 additional hoards, pulling data from numismatic catalogues across Europe and the Middle East. Then they built a mathematical model. Every coin became a data point, every hoard a destination, every distance between mint and burial a clue. The results broke the textbook story in 4 distinct places. Rome's economic collapse did not start with the barbarian invasions. The data shows real consumption in the heartlands of the Western Empire. Italy, southern France, and Egypt began plummeting in the 4th century. This decline began decades before the Visigoths sacked Rome, and a full century before the last Western emperor was deposed in 476. By the time the Germanic kings carved up the empire, Rome was already an economic shadow. The invasions did not cause the collapse. They were the funeral. The rise of Islam in the 7th century ruptured Mediterranean trade, just as Pirenne argued, but not the way he thought. Before the Arab conquests, between roughly 450 and 630, coins flowed freely across the Mediterranean. Coins minted in Carthage ended up in European hoards. Coins from Rome and Constantinople crossed into North Africa. The sea was a highway. Then, after 713, the pattern fractures. The north to south flows almost entirely disappear. The Mediterranean splits into two separate economies, divided by a religious border. But trade did not die, it rerouted. Within the Islamic world, commerce exploded. Coins minted in Cordoba ended up in Baghdad. Coins from Damascus traveled to North Africa. Real consumption in the Middle East actually peaks in the 8th century, under the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates. While European schools were teaching this as a dark age, the Islamic world was living through a golden one. As the Mediterranean fractured, the Frankish lands of northwest Europe quietly began to rise. Not slowly, spectacularly. Real consumption in what is now France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Western Germany climbed through the 7th and 8th centuries. By the time Charlemagne was crowned emperor in the year 800, the heart of European economic life had already moved hundreds of kilometers north of where the Roman Empire centered it. New trading proto-cities exploded along the North Sea coast: Dorestad in the Netherlands, Quentivik on the French Channel coast, Hamwich in southern England, places that 3 centuries earlier had been frontier villages. Now they were emporia, markets where coins changed hands and goods moved by the shipload, and by the year 900, the wealthiest region in the entire ancient Western world was no longer Rome or Constantinople. It was the Atlantic facade. The continuous strip of coastline running from al-Andalus, Islamic Spain, through southwestern France, up through Carolingian Frankish Europe, to the North Sea. 600 years before Columbus sailed for the Indies, the Atlantic coast was already where Europe's money lived. Trace the flows, map the densities, run the model, and the answer keeps coming back the same way. Wealth had moved west. How does an entire region become the richest place on Earth without the history books noticing? The answer lies in what coins do not capture. The old Mediterranean economy was built on luxury: silk, spices, gold, papyrus. These were goods that travelled long distances and were carefully recorded by literate elites. When that trade collapsed, the elite writers noticed. They wrote about it, they mourned it, and their writings became the historical record we inherited. The new Atlantic economy was different. It was built on bulk: grain, salt, fish, wool, iron, timber. These were goods that moved by the shipload, not by the ounce. They fed armies and built cathedrals. They did not inspire elite poetry, but they did leave behind massive coin hoards. And those coins piled up along the North Sea and the Channel for centuries before any chronicler thought to write it down. This Atlantic wealth was the very foundation that funded the Norse push west. They settled Greenland in 985. They reached Newfoundland by 1021. A story we have covered on this channel before. The coins reveal how long the European economic engine underneath that voyage had already been quietly running. Then Boehm and Chaney tested their model against an independent dataset. Records of European urbanization after the year 700. Where their model predicted high consumption, cities had grown. Where it predicted decline, cities had shrunk. The match was tight. They were measuring something real. The economic geography of medieval Europe was not what the chronicles said it was. It was what the coins said it was. Coin hoards have caveats. They are often buried in times of panic and discovered by chance. Regions with active archaeology produce more data. Regions with strict metal detecting laws produce less. Coins also only measure monetized exchange. Barter and taxes paid in grain leave no trace. The economists tried to correct for these biases by analysing the proportions of coins within each hoard rather than raw totals, but they admit the data has limits. The consistency of 500,000 data points, though, is undeniable. The economic centre of gravity of the Western world really did move, slowly at first. then decisively, from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, from south to north, from an empire's heartland to its old periphery. And it happened during exactly the centuries that European school curricula label as the Dark Ages. Which brings us back to Columbus, standing on the docks at Palos de la Frontera in August 1492, looking out at the Atlantic. He did not appear out of nowhere. The coast he set off from had been the richest region in the Western world for nearly 600 years before he was born. His voyage was not the sudden awakening of European expansion, it was a delayed reflex. It was the moment when an already incredibly wealthy region finally decided to spend its winnings on the open ocean. For 1,500 years, every history textbook has told us that the modern world begins when Columbus discovers America. The coins say otherwise. They say the modern world begins centuries earlier, in the warehouses of Dorestad and the silver hoards of Cordoba, and the trading harbours of the North Sea. They say the Mediterranean did not pass the torch in 1492, it passed it in the year 900. And nobody noticed because the new centre of power was too busy counting its money to write the story down. 494,229 coins, 5,625 hidden hoards, 6 centuries of buried evidence. Together, they prove that the Atlantic was already winning long before anyone in Europe knew there was a race. Till the next discovery, this is Strata Files.